But it's great to be here today and to talk about what young people how the trends are going for young people in Allegheny County in Western Pennsylvania. And as Doug mentioned, I'm probably in many ways one of those typical Pittsburghers at a certain age. So I'm 53 years old and I graduated from college about 31 years ago. And when I was graduating from college back in 1981, that was kind of the worst time as far as population exodus and job finding in Western Pennsylvania. That was the height of the steel collapse, heavy industrial collapse. And over those next few years, Pittsburgh lost literally tens of thousands, almost 100,000 people moved out of this region under a certain age. We started to stabilize a little bit 10 years later. And then in the last few years, we've actually started to grow again with respect to young people. And the trends are actually very positive in many, many ways. Going back to 1981 in the early 80s, Pittsburgh, in our young 25 to 35-year-old workforce, had one of the lowest educated workforces in the nation as far as college degrees go. Fast forward 30 years later, our 25 to 35-year-old workforce is the most educated workforce in the country when it comes to postgraduate degrees. So it's an amazing transformational shift that has occurred in those 30 years, in addition to everybody becoming 30 years older, guys like Doug and me. And then there have been other changes that go along with that. And those changes are, what do young people want? What do those college graduates, recent graduates, young professionals, what do they want when it comes to quality of life? Well, 30 years ago, we hardly even talked about things like trails, river trails. We used our rivers for something very different. We used it only for industry. They were much more polluted than they are right now. And we didn't use them as much for recreation. And then we had a visionary mayor who kind of came along, Mayor Murphy, and kind of beat us all over the head, telling us how important trails are to quality of life, to economic vitality, to real estate values, and we embrace that. And we see the benefits of doing those type of things. Another trend that has happened over the last 30 years is when I was getting out of school, the first thing I and my colleagues, my classmates thought of was buying a car. That was the first thing you wanted to do when you got that first job, was to be able to buy a car. Well, now young kids coming out of school have a much different mindset. A lot of them don't buy a car. They want to take a bike to work, or they want to live where there's a transit line, or they want to be able to maybe car share, or use Zipcar, or use some other method of transportation. So it's a different mindset, and those of us in government, and those of us who set public policy, need to be able to adapt and to work. If we are going to attract young people, we're going to continue to attract the kind of talent that will move this region forward. Those of us in public policy need to make those adjustments. So that's some of the things that we need to work on, and that's some of the things that we are doing. Young people are also much more interested in the arts than they were 30 years ago. And by having a vital arts community, and that means an awful lot of things. It certainly means, having world-class symphony, world-class opera, our world-class aviary, FIPS, again, trails, quality of life issues that are important. Because one of the things that's also changed over the last 30 years is people have more ability to decide where they want to live. They can make a living in a city that they want to be at, whereas in years past, you almost had to live near where you worked. People often live very close to where they work. That's not the case now with the mobility that we have with the technology that's out there. So it's incumbent upon all of us in government to be able to work to those ends. So just some statistics, I think, that we'll talk about what we did and where we've been. At the peak of the exodus in 1984, which is actually the worst year, we actually lost 50,000 residents who moved out of Allegheny County and left for other parts of the country. 70% of them were under the age of 39, so it was young people that moved away. I often like to tell the story, and I know there's probably a few Steeler fans in this room, If you ever watch a Steeler game, an away game, and you see all those Steeler fans waving those little yellow towels, those terrible towels, and the announcers talk about how Pittsburgh fans love to travel, love to go watch their team play. Well, they don't have the story quite right. What happens is Pittsburghers who live in those cities, Denver, Indianapolis, Nashville, wherever it might be, who have moved away over the last 25 years, 30 years, they gather every Sunday at their Steeler bar, because as much as they're Steeler fans, they're really love of Pittsburgh. And while they left Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh never left them. So they reconnect, and that's that group that in the 80s and even some of the 90s are gone, and they've been gone for many years, and they've raised their families in other cities, but where they grew up, where their roots are, they still think of Pittsburgh as their home. But that has changed. Over the last 5 years, actually our 20 to 34 population actually grew by 7%. And last year alone, 2011 alone, we gained 3,700 young people that moved into this region. That was the highest it's been almost since before World War II. So we're going back many, many years at breaking trends that are now happening. We see over the next 8 years that the population, they're estimating another 8% will gain. I actually think it's going to be more than that, because I think Pittsburgh in the region is moving far ahead of the economic trends when it comes to job growth. And I think one of the big reasons is the choices that people have as they come out of school. Years ago, again, going back, you pretty much had heavy manufacturing and a few other industries. We kind of had all our eggs in one basket. Right now, we are a very diversified economy, probably more diversified than any other place in the country. I was invited about 6 months ago to appear before the U.S. Chamber of Commerce down in Washington, D.C., talking about 2 regions in the country, Denver, Colorado, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that have bucked the trends of the national recession that hit and how we have grown jobs. And one of the reasons they cited was because of our diversification. Yeah, we still make steel. Steel's still a very important part, and manufacturing is still a very important component of our economy. In fact, 2 major steel mills, 2 major steel producers are investing over $1 billion in modernization and expansion. U.S. Steel down in Clairton, in their modernization of their coke works. It'll be the largest coke producing facility in North America. And then Allegheny Technologies, making stainless steel up in the Allegheny Valley. They're spending almost $1.5 billion in modernization in what they do. The energy, we know about the Marcellus Shale and what that's going to provide. It's already provided a lot of jobs, and the growth we see is really going to continue. The fact that Shell has decided to invest a couple of $1 billion in a new cracker plant, a petrochemical plant, it's going to provide a lot of feedstock for other manufacturers to follow in the plastics and rubber industry. We also know what a financial sector we have become, with PNC, one of the largest financial institutions in America, right here, and they continue to grow. They're adding a $400 million skyscraper right here in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh. It's going to add over 3,000 jobs when that is done. And they're not the only ones. In fact, Fifth Third and Huntington and other banks have moved their regional facilities, their regional headquarters here, makes us a leader in financial services. BNY Mellon, even though they're located in New York as a headquarters, their major job producing is done right here in Pittsburgh, the major back office operations. And the reason they will tell you that that's the case is because they can attract people to Pittsburgh. They can attract young talent to Pittsburgh because of the quality of life, the cost of living, the ease of the ease of living and being able to raise a family. They can't do that in New York City. So we're able to compete and grow jobs in that sector, even while the headquarters is in New York. Our IT business, the information technology business, with Google continuing to expand here right in the East End, out in Bakery Square, and Microsoft and Yahoo and the other IT companies that spin off coming out of Carnegie Mellon and Pitt have continued to grow. We're a major producer in rail. Nobody gets excited, I think, anymore. Rail yards, railroads, they're old facilities. Now, it's a pretty efficient way to move transportation. And that we have in Saldo, we have Bombardier, we have L.B. Foster, we have these major companies, Wabtec, right here that continue to grow, continue to expand, continue to grow jobs. Environmental companies like Calgon Carbon that are growing in a big way. Retail companies like American Eagle Outfitters, Dick's Sporting Goods. Again, all of them are continued and poised to grow. So our diversification in all these different areas, including the research, the life sciences, the eds and meds that were kind of a bedrock of what we did many years ago, continue to be what continues to make this region grow and prosper. It's a great time to be a young person coming out of school in your early 20s and locating in Pittsburgh. The future is bright. The present is bright for you to be able to find a job, but you also know that you're going to live in a great place that has an improving quality of life, people that care about it, and it's just a great place to live. So with all of that, I appreciate the work that the university has done, the University Center for Social and Urban Research at Pittsburgh Today. What you do, I think some of these surveys and some of these studies and qualitative and quantitative analysis are needed. Because while anecdotally we all have things we can talk about, to be able to put it into practice with data and real data points is very helpful. It's very helpful for me as somebody who's there to set public policy, working with county council, working with our state leaders and our federal leaders and our partners within the private sector. And the other thing I will comment on as to why Pittsburgh has been able to do some of the things we do is I think we're a region of practical people. We're a region of people that are willing to work together. We see the business community working with labor unions. We see our nonprofit sector working with our universities, working with our foundations, working with community groups across barriers, city, suburb, old industrial sites, new bedroom communities, kind of coming together, and we do that in a very, very practical way. I don't think Pittsburgh is ever thought of as and I say Pittsburgh obviously in a very broad sense, the Western Pennsylvania region. I don't think we're very far to the right politically, where we don't want any government anytime, anywhere, or we're to the left, where we want government to solve every problem. We want to be able to partner in a way that makes sense, where government can have practical solutions with respect to infrastructure and job training and other services that we rely on, but we also want people to get out there and utilize those services and work hard and be productive in society. So I think it's that kind of practical nature that we've kind of passed on from generation to generation that puts us in good stead for the future.